Jaime from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today card 4 in my Lawn Fawns Fly High stamp set series featuring those cute little Lawn Fawn mice. I am bringing in a few stamps from that Fly High set, and then of course some of the other mice that I adore. I didn't end up using the You Autumn No Mouse, but I did use the Bubbles of Joy, the little mouse in that one, and then of course the ones in the new Elephant Parade stamp set as well. Now for this one, because I want to do a swivel feature on my Swish-n-Pop, I want a thicker piece. I won't need a thicker piece. I probably could maybe make it work with the existing arm, but because I knew I wanted it to be thicker and it add a little bit more stability to that swivel feature, I just traced it and then hand cut it out, as well as hole punching where the holes are on the die. Now you could use the die and then just add another layer of a sheet over the top, clear acetate that's a little bit thicker on top of the actual arm, but I just found this to be easy enough. And then I will cut that out and clean up all of my adhesive. So using any kind of Sharpie, rubbing alcohol will get it off, but I actually got it off with just water because it wasn't fully set yet. Now to bring in my Swish-n-Pop base piece. Now this is the one that you want it to be a minimum of whatever that little lever down is, that L portion is from your base. And why this one works in the platform pop-up is it's just below that top fold line, and so it fits in there. Now I realize right now that I probably should have cut it on the opposite side of this one. I mean, it still worked in the end, so it really didn't matter, right? Whatever. And then I'm just going to punch out my little holes that it makes there. And then make sure, and I did it on the inside because I'd already had my hill on the middle done, and so I couldn't see where that fold line was. I understand why I did it how I did it. I just, probably should have done it the other way. And so I'm taking my back piece and my front piece, and I'm just trying to make sure that it's going to work the way I want it to work. So I'm just angling, because this is what, my third Swish-n-Pop card, and I'm basically an expert now, so I have to remind myself how the Swish-n-Pop actually gets put together. Yes, all 3 of my Swish-n-Pop cards have been in the inside of a platform pop-up. I haven't actually done them in an actual flat style card. I should probably do that sometime. Anyways, so I like to make sure that my pull tab feature is extra sturdy. So I did bring in some Accent Opaque 120-pound cardstock and then adhered my pattern paper over the top of it. You could definitely do a coordinating pattern paper or colored cardstock instead of the matching pattern. I just decided to, make it all matchy-matchy. So I'm going to insert my one brad in that first hole, and then the second brad is going to go through that Swish-n-Pop arm and then into my card base or my platform pop-up base here. Now keep in mind it actually needs to go in the middle and not where, where your T would end up going if you were going to put your T in there. Does that make sense? I don't know how to explain it very well. I'm sorry. Now, because we're looking at, I did it backwards, right? And so I was looking at that first one and it was going to end up hitting the outside, and I didn't want it to get lost in there. So I'm putting it in the second one technically in my platform pop-up. But you could, I kind of like it at that angle, but it maybe would have been close to where my tab, my furthest one there would have been if I'd actually put it in the right way. Maybe that's why these ones work out. I guess I've never paid attention. Huh. I should go back and watch the other videos and see if I did it the same way. Interesting. Anyways, so I'm bringing in some super thin foam adhesive here. The little skinny lines. I picked this stuff up off of Amazon. If you are interested for the link, I will try to link it below. I'm not great about it, but if I forget and it's something you're interested in, please drop me a line and I will make sure to add it if I didn't already. I'm just trying to figure out where I want it to go. I really want my balloon to get a lot of height. I don't want it just to be, oh, look, I made it half an inch off the top. That's not how I roll. But I'm coming in with that foam adhesive to kind of put my little stopper in here. So this way I know that it's gonna, but I also have to be mindful of where my pull tab is. So it's a little bit of trial and error here, and I don't glue any of this in. I just do the foam adhesive, and I don't push it down too hard until I'm sure I have it where I want it. And then, of course, adding that in the back stretch to stop it from going out the other side. Granted, once my platform pop-up is put together, it'll have a natural block there, but this way it just allows me a little bit more control on that lever or that arm while I'm building it. Now, keep in mind you have to be mindful of your pull tab on this one because it needs a little bit of extra room because you want your platform pop to be able to close. And so this was one that I had to troubleshoot the first time I created this one, trying to figure out how to get it to close with that pull tab arm coming out the side. It took me a little bit, but you know, trial and error. And once you figure it out, it's pretty easy to wiggle around it. So for this one, all you have to do is make a little slit in that side piece, making sure that you have enough real estate on the top and the bottom that your little flap there is going to stay together. And so once I have that part put together, I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on all of my parts so I can actually put my platforms together. So I will do that off of camera for you because I'm sorry, this video is going to be super long the way it is because this one probably took me about 7 hours, give or take a little bit, just to get it to work. I had to walk away for a little bit because it wasn't balancing like I wanted it to balance. So for my actual platform piece here, because I put that foam tape in the middle, I kind of need to wiggle just a little bit more room out of my platform pop-up tabs. So I usually go in and add a little score line right next to the existing score line. It gives me just a little bit more wiggle room, and you will see that in a little bit here. So I probably wouldn't have had to put my pull tab in the little slot already. I probably could have waited until a little bit later and it would have made this part a little bit simpler. But, you know, I don't like to take the easy way out. I like to make it, you know, difficult on myself. And then I will end up adding the extra piece here. So I'm going to actually close up my platform pop-up middle part before I add my other platform pop-up to it. I'm just making sure that this foam adhesive isn't going to get in the way of anything, but I want it to have a little bit more stability and a little bit more sturdiness to my piece, because this is what's going to connect my two sides together, basically, is what's holding that platform pop-up or the swish and pop mechanism in place on the inside. And so I do die cut my hills for this one to be the full width and length of that pull tab, or the inside piece of my platform pop-up box. I'm sorry, I can't talk today, and this is like take 13 already, so I'm just going with it. So once I have that in place, you'll see that it's fully enclosed. It lines up perfectly because I die cut the two pieces together. Then I'm going to add my other side onto it. I am going to make sure that I glue this very well. I like to use liquid adhesive. I like to use both of them on my platform pop-ups. It just makes things stick and stay better, more permanent, I guess you could say. Now, when you actually put the platform together here, you want to make sure that you have it standing up, because that's going to be your most, where it's holding the most tension, or where your paper is going to be under the most stress. And this helps you to figure out how much overlap you actually need, because you don't want it to be right where your normal platform pop-up would be. We have to account for that added thickness in the middle. And you will see that right here. So I do add some liquid adhesive. It allows a little bit of wiggle room here. I'm gonna try to cheat it here a little bit, and then yeah, see, I need a little bit more wiggle room. So by putting it together when it's actually in the platform stage, it's gonna, you know, help you to line that up better. And so you're not gonna have bowing and flexing that you don't want. This way it works. See, it works. I'm excited. Now for that pull tab feature, I don't need it as long as it is. I want to get rid of a little bit, but I don't know how much I need to get rid of yet. So I'm just making a couple of tick marks, because it ends up sliding in when you close your platform pop-up. Now, this is the most, or you know, so I'm kind of playing with it, making sure that I have what I need sitting out there. I'm not going to make that final cut until a little bit later, because I like to make sure that I have, you know, I don't want to cut too much. You can always cut more off, but you can never add more onto it as easy as you can cut more off. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to add in my hillsides here. I just add them with a thin bead of that liquid glue. And not going overboard with the glue, keeping it fairly thin, and then making sure that it's not hanging over or touching any of the things. So once I have that, of course, I'm going to make sure that my Swish-n-Pop works yet. It still folds up good. And I'm happy with this point. Now I need to figure out all of my coloring. Now I kept this in, but I sped this up like 10 times, so it's super fast. I will have my new color guide that I created for this one. It coordinates, to me it coordinates, except for the pink. I probably wouldn't have needed to go quite so dark, but it coordinates well with simple stories, simple vintage life in bloom. I adore this new paper pack, and you'll see it later because there's some like ticket tag type things, and of course there's like text, and we all know how much I like text backgrounds, so yeah, it's all the things. So I just colored one of those baskets. I did bring in 2 shades for my actual basket here. I could have just done one. It wouldn't have mattered. There are my images all colored and fairly soon cut out. Here they are cut out. I just ran them through my brother's scan and cut. I don't have the coordinating dies for this one. And so I'm going to pull them off of the sheet here and then work on getting, so my big one was on the edge, and so I ended up having a couple of issues. So I did do the back of the mouse from this stamp set, so from the Fly High stamp set. I just kind of cleaned off the stamp and selectively just kind of stamped the head and then cut around what I didn't want sticking out, because I want my balloon to be front and back so you can see it from the front and the back. And then of course I thought it would be cute to have the little mouse, the back of the little mouse head on the back of the balloon. So I'm just working with what I was thinking when I was, you know, coloring and stamping. I usually have an idea and a story in my head before or while I'm stamping out all of my images to kind of, you know, figure out that story in my head. The gay mouse just didn't make it because he was all excited that it went up in the air. But I could have put him maybe on the front. Maybe I could put him on the back yet. He might end up somewhere on it after the fact because I really wanted him on my platform pop-up somewhere, but it's okay. So for my Swish-n-Pop feature here, and then of course that swivel feature. So I kind of figured out where I wanted it placed. Now, I was trying to go as low on the balloon as I could because I wanted the most lift. And so I did bring in some weights. I use some cheap washers that you can pick up at the hardware store. And then, of course, those little embellishments from, I don't know what they're called. Yeah, I think they're embellishments. Embellishments from MFT, the little slider spinner discs. So they work well for this type of feature. Now, I cut out about a half-hour video of me trying to get the balance right. I just couldn't get it right. Like, no matter how many layers of heavyweight cardstock or metal weight I put in there, that top of the balloon was just way too much for me to balance out and get it to stabilize. So I ended up bringing in a piece of acetate here. I did a cloud cut on the top just to make it look prettier. And then I'm trying to figure out where my actual, and I was off screen for that, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to figure out where my actual, so if you watch carefully on the clear, there's a hole there, and then I'm just going in that hole and trying to figure out where exactly it is going to end up or the line that it takes. So it's plain the travel. I'm sure there's some mathematical whatever, you know. That was way too many years ago for me to figure that stuff out. I'm sorry. I just, you know, go with the flow. So I could see the line. I could have hand cut it, but ugh. I am not good with hand cutting acetate with a utility knife. It just wasn't happening. At least if I could, you know, find something else that was going to work. So I did pull out all of my slider die channels, and I was like, this one's close. And so that's the one that I brought in. Now, if you are trying to recreate this card or something similar, I will tell you to cut both channels right away because you will probably end up a little bit better on that whole, you know, where it's supposed to line up. I don't know. Feature. I did end up doing a second. I wasn't planning on doing the second one. I was hoping that it was going to be enough stability in between those two that I'd be able to get away with just having it there as a guide, so it wasn't gonna like flop on me. It didn't work that great. I tried. So I kind of cut where I knew that I didn't need it to cut past, so I just partially die cut it. And then I'm just going to hand cut that with the scissors here. And then try this out. So I'm not attaching it to my base yet, because once I attach it to the base, I'm not going to be able to pull it off and, you know, die cut it. Well, I probably would, but I didn't want to attach it quite yet. And of course, I lost something again because, you know, of course I did. I just brought in a piece of double-sided adhesive here to make it stick. I knew it wasn't going to hold it, but I just needed something that was going to try to make it stick. Now, you see how thick that piece is there? That was me trying to level it out. And I was still planning on keeping it at this point, like trying to weigh down the bottom part. And it still was way too much for it. And so I was like, well, if I make a second channel above the first channel, I should be able to, you know, it'll be steady. It'll stay straight up and down, and it shouldn't flip and flop quite so bad. So lining this one up, I'm not an expert. I eyeball lots of things. I'll even bring in the ruler to make it look kind of good. Don't worry, I really didn't measure anything. This was all just for, you know, video proof that I tried to measure. I really didn't. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it didn't look like it was even. So it, yeah, no. So once I line that up fairly okay, I'm going to run that through my die cut machine again. And yes, can you see the debris of creation on my desk? It's getting bad. That's when I know I'm getting close to getting it right. At least it sounds good. So I'll run that one through the die cut machine and then do the little rounding of the edge, or I try to round the edge to make it look pretty. And then I did end up cutting it bigger. I knew I was going to need it bigger. I knew that it wasn't going to be exactly in that right channel. And so I have them on there. I'm just going to go, I do end up bringing in some rubbing alcohol sheet to kind of clean up my acetate here. It was messy by the time of, you know, finger smudges and all of the things. Yeah. So I'm going to add a piece of double-sided adhesive on to that back side of the hill where I want to add my piece of acetate. So I'm going to add that on, and then I'm going to push through my little, because I already have the piece of paper that, you know, sandwiches in between that little slider disc. It technically works without the back piece here. And I tried getting this. It was like not wanting to stay on there at this point. It was like, I've tried this 5 times and you keep pulling me apart. I'm done. I'm done, woman. I'm done. So I'm going to try to be patient and let it dry a little bit. And then I'm going to cut some more circles. Now, I was going to go with the little one, and I was like, I don't need them to be little because I don't need to fit them on anything small. So I did bring in the bigger one for this one, and then I can sandwich my little replenishments. That's what they're called, but it's the slider discs from MFT. Of course, making sure to bring in and scuff them up a little bit before adding them. That way that they have something a little bit stronger to adhere to. And once I have that on there, I'm going to tuck this in on the back side here into the flap onto my balloon. Yes, you get to see my head. Sorry. Yeah. That's, it just was like not. And that's when I was like, you know, I can peel off all this extra, because that's really what it was just extra. I didn't really need the brad or the extra piece of washer on there. I think I end up removing it in the end. I'm not exactly sure. I could go look, but it's sitting on my desk. And so once I had that and it was dry, I had to try it out. So yes, it works. I did end up cutting a little bit more off the top and off of the bottom, just so I went, because you could see where it was bowing the acetate sheet, and then just making, you know, the minor adjustments there as needed. And at this point, all I have to do is make it pretty, like finish the rest of my scene. And yes, I did want the back to look pretty as the front. Not that you really see it, but you know, I tend to be extra sometimes. Yeah. And I did put a back panel on it, so I felt that my back needed to be, you know, kind of cute too. And this way I could strategically place those clouds kind of to help my balloon guide along. It works a lot better standing up than it does laying down, because sometimes laying down it'll catch the balloon on the coming back side, but standing up it works very well. So now I just need to add in all of my cute little things. So we have all of those, you know, mice running to help or watching the hot air balloon. Because what do you do when you see a hot air balloon in the sky? You look up and you know, follow it with your eyes for quite a while, because it's kind of rare to see a hot air balloon. At least here in Minnesota, it's fairly rare to see a hot air balloon. We do have some people locally that have them, but you know, a couple of times a year we might see them, if that. So, and then of course I did double-sided balloons for my little ones too, because I wanted them to be just as cute as my one that moved. And then this helps with the adding in, I don't know, depth and dimension, and kind of setting the scene for that bigger one to go up into the air. So I will add those ones on there, add the little banners. And then try to decide if I wanted to add another cloud. And so I think I ended up adding this one in between the two. And of course I liked it kind of hanging off that one piece of acetate. So I had to remove some adhesive. And then there's just me playing with it, because, you know. And then to finish it up, I need a sentiment. So I'm doing the "I'm here to lift you up." So just selectively stamping the "to lift you up," cleaning it off good, making sure there's nothing left on it, and then stamping the "I'm here" above it. And then I'm just going to add that onto the front of my base, and then add on my pull tab little thing. And I do realize that it probably should have the arrow going the other way, because technically you push it in to get your pull tab motion to do your thing, but it's all good. So here is my completed Swish-n-Pop pull tab platform pop-up with a swivel feature so it stays upright. That's a mouthful. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you know when new things come on, and it helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching. Please keep getting inky. Bye!